Reproduction, publication, rebroadcasting, public showing, internet, or public display is forbidden and may violate copyright law.
Living Today with Ryan Brockington returns on Martha Stewart Living Radio, Sirius XM 110.
Hello, gorgeous. I'm just hanging out in the Living Today studio with my friends Chris and Naomi, like I always do. And you guys know them very well. But a brand new name you need to add to your friend Rolodex is Catherine Cleare. She is an amazing interior designer. She's been doing this for a while, you guys. Her portfolio is very, very extensive and brilliant. And these specific floor techniques that she works with really stood out to us here at Living Today, and we had to have her join us and go into all things floors and interior design in that world. And if you guys are struggling with a specific room in your house, maybe you really just don't know what to do, and everything is done from ankles up, but just the floor in general is still not it's just not going with where you want to go in the design world in your house. Give us a call. Any question is not too difficult for Catherine, I promise, because you should see her. She's a confident lady, and she knows what she's talking about. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Ryan,
yeah?
It's good to meet you. I'm great. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So for everyone at home, if you want to give us a call, it's 1-866-675-6675. We are seeing tons of transitions and trends with flooring right now. For a while, it was carpet in the late 80s. We went into wood. We went back into, there was a concrete phase for a while. It was very industrial. And now we're going back into a really classic minimalist white feel, I feel like. And you've been in this industry and seen all of those, right?
I have, and the biggest trend I see right now is 7-inch wide oak planks that have a gray wash on them. It's not the pickling like we had in the 80s. It's like a translucent wash that has then been wiped off so that you really see the grain of the woods. It's spectacular.
Wow,
very fresh looking.
So it plays off of that flea market redone finish of those unique tables that we're seeing people bring into their houses, and so it's playing off of that look.
Yeah, it is, and it's picking up on the really strong gray influence that we're seeing. If you walk through the D&D building in New York City, every window has some version of gray in it. So this picks up on that, and the best thing about it that I love is that not only is it fresh and current looking, but it can go from a beach house where it hides all the grit of the sand and the seagrass and wet dogs, but it can be very elegant at the same time.
Yeah, if you pair it with a nice chrome table and big lighting accents, it can be very, very chic and cosmopolitan.
Sure. Gray flannel.
Yeah.
That would be pretty hot looking.
Yeah. So speaking of flannel and fabric-inspired design, there's also, I mean, herringbone is still very much a trend, right?
Herringbone is like a tweed jacket to me. It never really goes out of style, but it definitely goes into phases where it's hot. And for the last few years, it's been a big trend. And one of the things that I noticed, it was either last year or the year before, even Ralph Lauren had it on his runway for the fashion show, which I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit wider. And one of the herringbones I'm crazy about right now is it's actually made by a company called Explicit Surfaces, where the edges are eased because it's made of antique wood. It's just incredibly beautiful.
So I want to dive into a little bit more about you and your experience in the world of interior design. What are some different types of things you've seen within the last couple of years that have really stood out to you that you feel may join these trends that we're talking about? What are you just really loving right now?
Well, one of the things I love, they're combining, for stone floors, they're combining a stone mosaic with glass tile. And it's incredible because if you can imagine a mosaic pattern of any kind where you would normally have the grout line, there might be a half-inch wide line of glass. So you're seeing this opaque stone, like a polished stone, but you're looking into this translucent glass. So it's almost like the stone is floating.
Wow.
It's really beautiful.
Is it 2 layers or is it?
No.
Wow.
But just think about if you were to look, visualize like a Byzantine pattern. That could be the mosaic pattern.
Wow.
But what would normally be the cut line for the stone, they've put glass in there. So it's really amazing.
So that's very intricate, the detail that goes into something like that.
But what's wonderful about it is that with all the laser cutting that's done by computers, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's not like years ago where everything was done by hand and it was a major expense and a huge lead time. Now with the computers, they could take your profile and cut it into the stone and put it on the floor. So,
that would be ridiculous.
Logo.
Where do I buy that? Yeah.
I want my profile.
It's funny you're talking about profile faces and whatnot. We were looking at this artist who actually takes Oreo cookies and pulls them in half, and then she carves out profiles of women's faces within the Oreo cookie inside. Yeah. It's amazing.
It really is.
The detail that goes into something like that. Oh, and that sort of brings me to another point about just finding art in different ways and in everything around us. It's one of my favorite things in the living that we all do here at Martha Stewart Living Radio is finding unique and different things from just everyday objects around us. Are there objects that you love to pull from in your design world?
My mantra is Mother Nature. I am literally obsessed with Mother Nature, and I get more inspiration whether it's out what I call weeding with my husband, looking for mushrooms, whatever. As a matter of fact, we were just driving around not too long ago, and he suddenly screeches to a halt. It's because he saw one of those big horizontal mushrooms on a tree. So I take that, and I'm like, I just can always find something to do with it, or seashells, something, but I just marvel at the color combinations, the textures, the shapes. So
yeah,
Mother Nature is my end-all be-all for what do you want to do? Like, even we walk early in the morning and the sunrise each day, I just can't even believe the color combination. I'm like, I got to remember that. That would be great in the dining room.
Yeah. And the gradient colors that exist in mushrooms, I find amazing. Because, I mean, they can fade from like a gray to like a green or a blue, and then you're like,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
How does Mother Nature think this up?
I don't know. You just got to always be changing, doing something else. And if we are wanting to change and do something else in our house, if we have had that same hardwood floor in our living room for 10, 15 years, but it seems as though it's such a huge task. Because it is, if you really want to gut and redo the entire living room, what are some other options for people out there that don't have the time, A, and B, the money? Because money is, that's the number one when it comes to wanting to do things like this. What are some other flooring options, or maybe some things we can introduce into our environment around us at home that might suffice for a little bit until we are able to save up?
So I found this neat concept from Paris Ceramics where they take a paint that's like the same paint that they use on bowling alleys, and they paint the floor, their version, their wood floor, so it's a glossy paint. It is spectacular. It has a wonderful luster to it. So I'm dying to do that on a project. Just paint the floor. Pick any color you want. But say if it's a beach house and you really, again, you don't want to worry about sandy feet, paint it. Paint it any pattern. You can do stencils on the floor. So anything that you can imagine, there can be a stencil cut for it, and paint. I love painted floors.
Yeah. Wow. And what if we're scared we're going to mess it up? Maybe try a smaller area first and then dive in.
Start with a powder room. Those are pretty forgiving. And if you decide you don't like it, then paint over it. But you can always sand it down too. I mean, really, if you decided that afterwards, well, maybe that black and white check wasn't such a good idea, sand it.
Yep. It's if it's been there for 15 years and we're thinking about getting rid of it. You can at least play around with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've definitely done things like that with your work. What are some of the projects that you've had recently that have been that subtle change or that subtle? Because basically what I'm hinting at is I really